Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. I'm here in the studio with Nancy Jane Woodside, who has put together a new book called Sea Glass, Women Speak from America's Newest Plantation. This is a very unique book in that it includes the writings of women who have been homeless or are homeless. Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Let's start with your background, because in reading about you on your website, you do have a very unique background. Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I started working for the homeless when I lived in Detroit in the Cass Corridor, and I designed an emergency care unit to take them off the streets and relieve the congestion in the hospitals. And I've been doing that. I raised my girls by holidays going to serve food to the homeless. It's kind of been part of my life. I worked in a factory for 16 years for Ford Motor Company to raise my girls as a single mom, and actually, my oldest daughter and I went to graduate school together. She went to medical school and I went to law school. And it's been a long journey, but working with the homeless has been it's like breathing. It's like part of my life.
Now, you've lived in different parts of the country. You mentioned you worked in an auto factory at one point. How did you end up on Cape Cod?
Well, Cape Cod is where I lived as a child. We had a place in West Dennis, and my dad worked at Ciccone Mobile Oil on the docks in Everett, and we lived in Wakefield. I went to Wakefield High School, but we came to West Dennis every summer. And when my last project as an engineering project out in Utah to build a wastewater treatment plant completed, I came back home, and Cape for me is home.
Now, how did you come to write this book? This book has such a unique premise. How did this come about? I was really, really struggling after the death of my youngest daughter, who served in the Air Force during Desert Storm. And that kind of grief is a very heavy load to carry. And I was driving down Ocean Street one day with some friends in the car. We'd been out to lunch, and one of the women said, "What is a lease house?" And it was in my neighborhood. It was 4 or 5 doors down the street from me, and I had no idea what a lease house was. So one day I took a walk down there, and I met a man named Steve, who was a consultant doing some work for Homeless Not Hopeless, and he said, "We need you." And I went home that night and I thought, well, I need them as badly as they need me. And so I thought I'll go do the kind of work I've always loved and been doing all my life. And then when the board started planning on opening up Eve's house, that just seemed to be the place where I could do the best work. And I helped put Eve's house together and met the house manager there, Carolyn, and asked if we could do a writing group, and she said she thought it was wonderful. And that's where it started, with the women at Eve's house. And we should back up a little bit and tell our listeners, some of them might not be familiar with the group Homeless Not Hopeless. Tell us about that group.
Homeless Not Hopeless works very hard to transition people out of homelessness. They want people to be clean and sober. They provide them transitional housing. But the men and women in the houses that we have, they work, they take classes, they go to group, they get involved in trying to transition their lives and get back into society. We help them get the things that people need, that like resumes and job interviews and education, and they work together as a family to manage the home that they live in.
And the thing about Homeless Not Hopeless, I know from years ago when I first found out about the group and first wrote about it, it was actually formed by formerly homeless people. Is that right?
Yes, two women, and I can remember her name, Mary. I'm sorry I can't remember his name at the moment. But yes, that's exactly how it began. It was formed by homeless people and is still run by homeless people.
And some of their philosophy is about keeping people connected to the community, as you say, keeping people busy, keeping people working, even if it needs to be volunteer work, but keeping people involved in helping to take care of these homes they have. And I believe, do they have 4 or 5 homes now where people can apply to live in a room, and it's a group living situation, and as you say, transitional living where they can try to get back on their feet?
Absolutely. People work together, pray together, play together, and they take care of, they cook their own food, they do their own shopping, they're really living as a family and being educated in the process and facilitated in terms of getting back into the community and doing good work.
And after they had the first 2 houses, which are on the same property just off Ocean Street, then they realized they had a need for more properties, and they were able to get a house, I think, in another neighborhood in Hyannis. And then they were able to get Eve's house, which is a beautiful house, down at the far east end of Main Street. And Eve's house is just for women. And tell us a little bit about Eve's house.
Eve's house is, it's kind of like fairy tale kind of story. It's that kind of house. It looks like a mansion. It's inside. It's breathtaking, in terms of its architecture. The man, I think, that worked on building that house was an architect. It's a beautiful home and a great place to bring people in to entertain and to have workshops. We have plenty of space in there. We have, I think, 12 or somewhere between 12 and 14 women in the house. And there's a beautiful big yard that they can sit out in under the trees and write and play, and the rooms for cars and bikes. It's just a wonderful spot.
And I remember when Homeless Not Hopeless acquired this house, and part of it was that being in this beautiful home would be part of a restorative process for people, and it sounds like your writing classes are part of that also. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. People they're learning how to cook. They're learning how to set a nice table. They pick flowers to put in vases on the table when they eat dinner. They learning how to set a very nice table, learning how to the women take turns cooking. They have a buddy system. They're working on a cookbook, and it's good stuff.
Now, your book has a provocative title, Sea Glass, Women Speak from America's Newest Plantation. Tell me about the title.
Well, I think when we think of plantations, we think about the South and a time in our country that we want to forget. And the fact is, poverty in this country is on the rise, and so is homelessness. We lost more homeless people this year than we've lost in quite a few years. And they're hidden, and they're something that people don't want to see. And that's what that's about. It's like the plantations are still here. They're just in different places. They're in cemeteries. They're in empty old car lots where there are empty cars not being used, hearses. They're on the beaches underneath boats. They're in the parks. They're everywhere you choose to see is how I call it. And plantations are something that we don't ordinarily want to look at. And women, for example, too many women are raising their children out of their automobiles. For me, that's just a new age plantation.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. I'm talking with Nancy Jane Woodside about her new book, Sea Glass, Women Speak from America's Newest Plantation. And in it, women who are homeless or have been homeless tell their stories. We were talking before the show about some of the pieces in the book, and there was one that you might read a segment of for us, perhaps, and you can tell us a bit about the woman who wrote it.
Sure. This woman's name is Monica, and Monica tried and had been trying for many years to get sober and off the streets. She had has a beautiful family. We lost her this summer, and she was part of our writing group when it started up. And this is a piece that she wrote. It's called Longing for Summer. Late July, and we're all still frozen on the beach, but can't stick our toes in. Birds want to nest, lay their eggs. Hurry up, summer, so I can shave my legs. One more month and fall is near. Winter will be too soon here, bringing a tear.
And tell me why you like that piece so much.
It's real. It's where... That's it. They have to hide in the winter where they can't be seen. They have to worry about being cold and hungry, and they look forward to the spring and the summer when they can be out and about and kind of more part of the world.
And part of helping people with writing is getting them in touch with their emotions. And tell me what kind of help you give to these women in terms of getting them to write and even just to start writing for the first time.
Well, I spend a lot of time getting to know them and helping to make them feel welcome and comfortable. I work with them individually when I need to, because there's different levels of ability to write, to speak, and telling their stories is, no one's ever wanted to hear their stories. So telling a story is overwhelming. And if there's stories that are really difficult, I will spend time with them alone and help them get to the point where the story is outside of them and no longer something that keeps them from speaking. And the tool that I used to get us started was Ernest Hemingway first made popular the 6-word story. And anyone, even these women, as difficult as it is for them to speak, can start letting their hearts heal with 6 words. They can find 6 words, and then it becomes the task is about making the 6 words actually tell a story. They don't necessarily, the first 6 words don't necessarily tell a story, but then they begin to talk and tell the story, and then they begin to learn how to actually write, and that's what I help them try to accomplish. And we do that in a very warm, very safe place, and we do it together. And we make cookies, and we eat all kinds of good things together. We talk together. We cry together. It's 6 words can be spoken by most people. They don't necessarily tell a story, but when you spend a lot of time with them, the stories get told.
And I'm sure the writing, as you say, brought up a lot of emotions with some of these women.
Without question. No one's ever... It's been a long, long time in their lives when anyone cared what they had to say, or listened to their stories, or recognized even that they were human. So it's a long process of coming back to life and getting the basic things that all of us take for granted. Sitting down to a meal together, praying together, talking and listening to each other. It's revolutionary for people like this.
And the writing can be a sort of therapy, perhaps, for them. Is that right?
Absolutely. Being able to tell your story and have someone listen to you in terms of what has happened to you in your life matters to all of us. It is how we communicate. And that's what happens to homeless people. They're hidden, they're silent, they keep everything inside, and they're afraid. And it takes a long time to move past that, especially for women who have the added burden. Most all women have been through some form of domestic violence. And that is buried very deep and takes a lot of hard work to begin to trust again. And they're also suffering from the consequences of the economy. The women for years have been paid less than men for the same kind of work, and so there's a lot of healing to do.
And as sad as some of the writing is, I'm sure there are also many success stories in it as well of people who have made the transition.
Well, what you find in their writing, which is wonderful, is there's joy in having someone actually listen and be able to write and get rid of the story. They're happy to put the story in the book because it means having told the story that they're free and they can begin to focus on other parts of their life, which mostly is based on trying to find a way back to being a human being, to healing and to feeling good about themselves, to participate in the world around them.
Now, where can people find a copy of this book locally?
It's at Books by the Sea, and it's in Titcomb's bookstore. It's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble online. You can get it at my website for the book, which is woodsidepublishing.com. It's available there. You can contact Homeless Not Hopeless. Anyone from Homeless Not Hopeless, you can stop by that office and pick up a book. They are around.
And unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much, Nancy, for being with me here today.
You're welcome.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.